Yes. When I was stationed in Pakistan in 2002, I was told unofficially that the Pentagon controlled the Pakistani nuclear arsenal. That Musharraf had turned control over to the United States because he was afraid of exactly what you just described. But the Pakistanis in the intervening years, and remember, I was there 23 years ago. Over the last 23 years, the Pakistanis have come to say that is absolutely not true. The United States has nothing to do with the Pakistani nuclear arsenal, that Pakistani generals are the ones that control it. Yes. When I was stationed in Pakistan in 2002, I was told unofficially that the Pentagon controlled the Pakistani nuclear arsenal. That Musharraf had turned control over to the United States because he was afraid of exactly what you just described. But the Pakistanis in the intervening years, and remember, I was there 23 years ago. Over the last 23 years, the Pakistanis have come to say that is absolutely not true. The United States has nothing to do with the Pakistani nuclear arsenal, that Pakistani generals are the ones that control it. So I don't know, if that's true, then I would be very worried about who is in charge politically in Pakistan.
No,
For example, Imran Khan. I can't believe that I forgot his name.
who's in jail? A popular
Who's in
leader
jail?
Yes, yeah,
Right, and still wildly popular.
wildly, yeah.
He told us when he was still the prime minister, he said, listen, I've got this political situation here domestically. I'm going to start blaming you for everything. And the ambassador laughed and said, we get blamed for everything anyway, so we don't care. So everything that happened, it was the United States' fault. And it was the U.S., they turned their backs on us. And the U.S. did this, and the U.S. did that. And then they arrested him anyway. So he got a message out to the U.S. government saying, can you help me get out of this? And we went to Jemima Goldschmidt, his whatever her name was, ex-wife. And she went to Pakistan and asked them if they would release him. And they said no. So, like you, I'm worried about continued disagreement in Pakistani politics that has the potential to spill into the streets because the Pakistanis have a tendency to get themselves spun up. And people die during demonstrations, and there are attacks against political figures and assassinations, and the country is not known for its transformative, leaders making positive decisions. I'll tell you another thing. When Benazir Bhutto was in exile in Dubai, I went to see her with a senior officer. I went as the note taker, and she lived in this $5 million palace on the Gulf. And we were sitting in the front room, the salon of the house, and we heard a car pull up. And she said, her exact words, "So help me God, if he came home with another Bentley, I'm going to kill him."
Zardari,
Yeah.
her husband.
And I said to my boss afterwards, she makes $60,000 a year. She lives in a $5 million house, and he has a collection of Bentleys. Aren't they ashamed of themselves? Like, how can they go back to Pakistan and look the Pakistani people in the face when their people don't even have shoes and enough food to eat? Like, I understand corruption is a problem there, but that level of corruption?
Yeah.
Come on. Well, those are the kinds of politicians that the Pakistani people have to deal with. At the CIA, we called the Indian policy strategic patience. The Indian government would have been perfectly within its rights to respond by striking Pakistan, and they didn't. And I remember at the White House, people were saying, wow, the Indians are really exhibiting a very mature foreign policy here. We expected the Indians to strike back, and they didn't. And that kept the world from what might have been a nuclear exchange.
Right.
But India's gotten to the point where they can't risk strategic patience being misunderstood as weakness. And
Right.
so they had to respond.
Right.
Now, the question now that CIA analysts are likely asking themselves are, did the Pakistanis learn their lesson? Not to keep poking the hornet's nest and expecting to not be stung. I had a very young first tour female officer working for me as my assistant. And we went to lunch one day in the embassy cafeteria. The cafeteria was enormous. It probably held 400 people, gigantic. And in fact, on weekends, it would double as a nightclub. There would be bands that came in and would play cover songs, and a disco ball would come down and spin around, and people danced. We went down at 12 o'clock noon one day for lunch.
Mm.
And when we got into the cafeteria, we were the only ones in the cafeteria. And she said to me, "Where is everybody?" And I said, "Are you kidding?" And she said, "No, where is everybody? It's 12 o'clock. And I said, "They've been evacuated." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because India and Pakistan are going to go to war with each other, like at any minute now." She said, "They are?" And I said, "Didn't you notice the helicopter in the parking lot?" And she said,
Right.
"Yeah." I said, "And you didn't wonder what it was there for?" She said, I didn't think of it. I said, "It's there to rescue us."
Mm.
And then the Deputy Secretary of State came in and
Mm.
shuttled between Delhi and Islamabad and negotiated a settlement where both sides backed off, and then everybody came back. But the moral of the story is that we were so busy and we were so focused on Al-Qaeda and Afghanistan, we never gave two thoughts to India. And I'll tell you another thing. Just a couple of months later, in March of 2002, we raided a lashkar-e-tayyiba safe house in Lahore.
Okay.
And in that house, we captured 3 lashkar-e-tayyiba fighters who had with them a copy of the Al-Qaeda training manual. And it was the first time, analytically, that we were able to connect Lashkar-e-Tayyiba with Al-Qaeda. The very first time. I remember receiving a cable from the deputy director of the CIA for intelligence, congratulating us on finding this training manual, saying it was the very first time that we could attach the Pakistani government to Al-Qaeda.